Let me now recognize Mr. Courtney. Mr. Courtney, you have 5 minutes for questioning, please.
Great. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the witnesses for being here today to really dive into a really important topic. Across my district, seeing the American Rescue Plan funding deployed in school districts like the town of Enfield, which put a lot of a chunk of its money towards a summer program to address learning loss, which I attended, and you could feel the energy, positive energy in the room with kids who were together again and who, again, were there really, I think, very engaged in their classwork. In the town of Salem, one of my favorite programs was a parent academy that was stood up to, again, help connect parents to their kids' school issues. I think all of us can agree that's the healthiest way for school districts to engage parents as an important stakeholder in terms of making sure kids succeed. In the town of Vernon, they boosted, where I live, their social worker staff to, again, help kids deal with the social, emotional fallout from the pandemic. But one other aspect of the rescue plan, Ms. Martin, which I wanted to talk about with you for a moment, was that, as long as I've been in Congress, there has been a hue and cry about the fact that special education has been underfunded. It has not matched the mandate when President Gerald Ford signed it into law. There was $3 billion new dollars that was put into the special ed funding, which now in Connecticut is going to be to help every single district. Maybe you could just talk a little bit about that, particularly that population, which took a real hit during the pandemic in terms of keeping them engaged with their schoolwork.
And the things that you highlighted, and specifically the $3 billion of the ARP funds that are identified for nearly 8 million students with disabilities. Part of what's baked into our approach and the funding streams here is to address those who are most disproportionately impacted by what they've been through. And so specifically, students with disabilities, we understand what they've experienced, and some of the state plans have to specifically address those needs. We focus on everything needs to be evidence-based. It has to address the social, emotional, and mental health needs of students, as well as if there's a disproportionate impact like we saw with students with disabilities. And so we're seeing state by state, the plans are intended to address those. I've seen, I can say from a personal level, I'm a sibling of a person with developmental disabilities. It's my older brother. And I understand as states develop with the specific intention, I think it was smart that we made sure that $3 billion were allocated because there's 8 million students with disabilities that were disproportionately impacted. And so the kinds of things that they need are decided school by school, state by state, with the student in mind. And we say we need to know our students by name and by need and design what's going to best help them individually recover what's been missing for them.
So I hope the department, because again, you described it, perfectly in terms of the value of that priority. It's just that, we can maybe get the, sort of a analysis of the impact, because again, this has been just a persistent nagging issue about the fact that for school districts who, again, don't dispute the need for helping kids with special learning plans, but, again, it can get real expensive to make sure that we understand how this really worked in terms of Washington, really living up to the mandate that was created. And again, I know in the fiscal year 22 budget that the president sent over, there was an increase in special ed, which again has been basically flatlined for decades. So anyway, kudos to the department for working on that. Mr. Kowal, it's great to see you again. Congratulations on being back in the saddle. As we look at the rescue plan money and the other higher ed funding, which again, some of it went directly to students, has there been any sort of data in terms of what that's done in terms of student borrowing? Because, clearly this was direct cash grant money that, colleges were able to get out to kids, whether or not that, is going to show up in terms of any reduced borrowing for, the last 18 months, 2 years, because, again, as we talk about the Pell Grant initiative and Build Back Better, I mean, that's obviously part of the benefit, which is to reduce student loan borrowing.
Mr. Courtney, thanks so much for the question. I know you're a longtime leader and have some real ambitious proposals in the area of student debt. We don't have data yet to suggest what impact this has had on borrowing levels. Obviously, students had a lot of additional expenses, lost jobs, new technology needs, new housing costs. So we'll have to wait and see until the numbers come in, whether that was a net positive or negative on student debt.
Great. Well, thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I'm now like to recognize Mr. Allen.